Hey, and welcome to the Overdrive Digital Podcast. The aim for this is to find and record and discuss really interesting case studies and stories in the digital marketing world. If you like it, please share it. Enjoy. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. So today we're in the actually slightly grey but usually sunny city of San Diego for Social Media Marketing World. I'm joined today by LinkedIn ads genius, AJ Wilcox.
Thanks, John. Super excited to be here.
No, thanks so much for making the time. And you're presenting on Friday?
That's right, the very last session of the day. I'm telling people I might as well be presenting from the terminal at the airport because, really, who's going to stick around for the last session of the day? But I'm hopeful.
I'll be there.
Woo!
I'll be there. So, yeah, I guess that's one day in the future now, but when this comes out, it'll be in the past. So we'll have a chat around that. Really keen to kind of talk about the business as well. But for anyone who doesn't know who you are, do you want to give them a little bit of a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm AJ Wilcox. Obviously, I've positioned myself very strongly around LinkedIn advertising as a subject. I live in the state of Utah in the United States, where we do not have these kinds of palm trees all up and down the streets. And we were just talking a little bit before recording, but I love cars. I love Ferraris and Aston Martins, kind of my thing. And you wouldn't know by looking at me, but I love endurance sports. I love triathlons, running, biking, hiking, snowshoeing, all that good stuff.
And you've just bought a motorcycle, which we could talk about for days.
Yes,
so.
Yep. I do have a Yamaha R6, but as we were talking before, it's my first bike, and that's a little bit overkill for a first bike. So we'll see if I survive the year.
It's ballsy. Yeah. Cool. So before we kind of dive into LinkedIn ads, and obviously keen to kind of talk around the detail there, but you run Beta Linked, which is a specialized agency. All you do is LinkedIn ads. How did you arrive at that? What was the process to lead up to the point of going, right, all we're doing is B2B, all we're doing is LinkedIn ads?
Well, it was a really interesting kind of run up there because for the first 7 years of my career, I called myself an SEO guy. I absolutely loved SEO, especially technical SEO. And I looked at people like Rand Fishkin who were speaking from stage, and I went, wow, I want to be like him when I grow up. And what was so funny is I would go and pitch all these conferences because I knew I wanted to be on stage. And everyone that I pitched was saying, oh, well, there are 300 applicants for an SEO slot. You're not well known. We'd never go with you. And so I kind of had this inkling in the back of my mind, like, well, you'll never really stand out unless you get outside of this industry, which was fine. I actually ended up discovering LinkedIn ads. It was probably about 7 years ago. I went in to go run all of digital marketing for a highly funded tech startup, and I talked to the CMO on my very first day and laid out my digital marketing plans, and she was like, okay, all that sounds great, go ahead and execute, but just so you know, we started a pilot with LinkedIn ads, so see what you can do with them. And I saluted and said, yes, ma'am, absolutely, and I walked out of her office and went, what have I gotten myself into? I've never even heard of LinkedIn ads, they must suck. And long story short, I ended up finding out that they did not suck. They did a really, really good job for that business. And so I grew that account to become LinkedIn's largest spending account. I ran it for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And then ended up getting laid off from that position. So then I was stuck at this crossroads of, all right, do I go get another job or do I start something with this newfound skill that no one else appears to be doing anything with?
Wow, so it was quite an organic process to finding your little niche area.
Yeah, and I really like being pushed into things. It's great.
It's funny how life pans out sometimes.
That's right.
Wow, so and what year was that?
That was in 2014.
Okay, so fairly early on the LinkedIn ads.
Yeah, LinkedIn ads has actually been around since 2007, and I didn't play with them for the first time until 2010. But truth be told, very few people knew about them or did anything with them in the early years. The platform was absolute garbage, and it's still quite a bit behind, but they've caught up a lot.
I was going to say, yeah, so that feels like early days for LinkedIn ads.
Absolutely.
It's probably, my perception is that over the last few years, people have kind of been adopting it more and spend's been going up, and we're certainly getting a lot more inquiries for help on the platform. But as a platform, if you compare it against Facebook or other kind of online platforms, it's very limited in what you can do. And I think initially sometimes there's frustration around the UI, there's frustration around things breaking, like even simple things like duplicating campaigns.
Yeah.
I mean, it was what? It's only been about 2 years since you could do retargeting on the platform, right?
Yeah. It was early
through
2016.
self-serve, anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously things have changed a lot over the last couple of years with LinkedIn ads. Like, where do you see it going over the next 12 months? I mean, that's a massive question, but like, what are your thoughts on kind of what's next for the platform?
Well, it's interesting. In sitting down with the product managers at LinkedIn, I know what's on the roadmap. I know where they're going, and on one hand, they tell me it's taboo to bring up Facebook is doing this, so we should be doing it. But on the other hand, I see them copying all of the successful features from Facebook. So if you're asking me what LinkedIn's going to look like in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to say it's probably going to look a heck of a lot like Facebook today.
Good answer. I mean, I guess you've got like features like the matched audiences and, you know, all these types of things that are coming in that are, I guess, if you're advertising on LinkedIn, you're familiar with how that works, and the makeup is actually quite similar. Like the mechanics behind it seem quite similar. Okay, cool. So I guess in terms of the campaigns that you run, like what sort of things are you doing? Because when we're running LinkedIn campaigns, what we tend to find is that it's great at doing very specific things. Like if you just go on, and you can correct me if I'm totally wrong here, by the way, but if you just go on and kind of slap up an ad and you're like, hey, here's what we're doing, come and check us out and get in touch, doesn't tend to work so well. But
that's right.
You know, if you're promoting content assets or I guess slightly higher up the funnel, amazing. So is that similar to your experience? Or
Absolutely. Yeah, generally what happens is, you know, if you're a Facebook advertiser, you're going to go all the way to the top of the funnel. At least this tends to work really well. You go all the way to the top of the funnel and then rely on retargeting. Like, you're going to start out by saying, here, view this blog post or check out this infographic. Anything to get you in to engage with the site or engage with the content, and then rely on Facebook's arguably amazing retargeting to keep nurturing them down the funnel until they're ready to give you some kind of information.
So do you retarget on Facebook rather than LinkedIn? Is that usually your strategy?
Yes, and not exclusively, but here's the deal. LinkedIn has by far the best targeting in the world for business professionals, but their retargeting is not the best platform. So if you can use LinkedIn originally to send the right traffic to your website and then retarget on both Facebook custom audiences and Google Ads remarketing, both of those are amazing, and you'll get the right audiences nurtured in the right way and stay top of mind. So, and I'm not saying don't use LinkedIn's retargeting. Sure, do use it. There's no problem with that. But just realize that it should be used in concert with both Facebook and Google when possible.
Got you. Okay. And I guess a big part of that is the cost, right? Because LinkedIn is not a cheap platform to run a campaign on, right?
Yeah.
So if you've already... It makes total sense because you've already got the right people to the page, you've got them engaged, they're then in your retargeting audience. So whether you're retargeting them on LinkedIn or on Google or display, it's the same audience, right? And
That's right.
The CPCs are going to be far lower that way, right?
That's right. Like we were talking about, if you send someone right to the bottom of the funnel and you're saying, hey, you've never heard of us before, but do you want to talk to our sales rep? Obviously, no one wants to click that. You end up with a really low relevancy score and your ads just shut off. If you go to the top of the funnel, you're paying $6 to $9 a click to get someone to view your blog post and no way to track, or, I mean, you can rely on retargeting, but you're usually talking about small audiences who aren't able to have a retargeting audience around them yet. So avoid the top and the bottom of the funnel. But like you said, if you go for content in the middle, this is usually a free gated asset.
Yeah.
That's what wins on LinkedIn right now.
Yeah, that totally matches our experiences. And we've found, so within that, what assets tend to work best? Because there's so many different things you could do, right? You know, from I guess the standards are like ebook, download a white paper, get on our webinar. What do you find works? And have you seen any really creative applications of that? Like stuff that's totally different.
Yeah, so I think you'll be really interested to hear. We don't see a whole lot of difference in conversion rates between types of assets. So if you're asking, is a one-page cheat sheet or a 48-page ebook or a 1-hour webinar, what's going to convert better, we find that they all have about the same conversion rates. So then the question becomes, all right, well, what is the difference then? The difference is the promise of the offer. So if you have a clientele who you are in touch with the problems that they face and the curiosities they have, you're going to be able to create content that addresses one of those things.
Yeah. So
someone knows, for my job, here's the one thing that keeps me up at night, and then you go and create a piece of content, whether it's a 1-pager, a 30-pager, a 1-hour webinar, a free in-person event, no matter what it is, as long as it addresses their pain point, they're going to download it and it's going to be a successful offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so key to getting that bit right, because you could be the best campaign manager, you could know LinkedIn ads inside out, back to front, been doing it, since day one, but if the offer's not right, or if the content's not right, or if it's framed in the wrong way, you're not going to get anywhere. So how involved do you get in those conversations? Because ultimately, you're accountable for the performance on that campaign, right?
That's right.
But if you're handed a asset that doesn't quite meet a need or isn't, how do you address that? How do you play that?
Well, I do address that during the sales process, and I turn away way more potential clients than I'll ever tell we'd like to work with you. And it very much hinges down to things like, what's your offer and how good is your sales team at nurturing and mentoring these leads?
Yep.
Because I don't want to be on the hook and having a hard conversation with you in 3 months because we did a really good job, but you're firing us because you didn't see the results. Like, I want to make sure that if you're going to be spending LinkedIn money, we're going to be working hand in hand to make sure we have exactly like the best chance of success.
Yeah, totally. And like that is just so key.
Yeah.
It's so, like, you have to get those foundations right in the first place. And it's, I always think that that's the biggest thing you have to think about before you start thinking about targeting and, creative. They're the optimizations on the results, right?
Yeah.
If the thing's wrong, then you're not going to get anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah. So, again, kind of on the similar topic, like, do you tend to find sending traffic to a landing page for a gated asset works best, or through lead forms?
Ooh. Yeah, this is a great question, because we literally have half of our clients who use exclusively lead gen forms,
yep,
and the other half who send to landing pages. So here's a quick kind of pros and cons list how I lay it out.
Okay.
I would prefer to send traffic to a landing page, because if they go to a landing page, number one, I'm tracking them through UTM parameters, and I'm able to retarget that traffic. And third of all, I know I'm going to have a better quality lead because they have access to an entire landing page that I've educated them and prepped them with. And of course, it's all going to be going through whatever form system we have the form set up on, so we own everything. On the other hand, you have lead gen forms where you're going to get a 10 to a 50% higher conversion rate, which is really attractive for those who exclusively want volume. But because that traffic doesn't hit your site, you can't track it. You also can't track down to an ad level unless you create a whole separate form for every single ad you run, which no manager in their right mind would do. The leads are going to be lower quality because it took less time to fill out, less thought because LinkedIn just auto-filled all your information in there, and the only thing you know about the company is what they gave you in 150 characters before you decide to convert. So a lot of times when your sales team reaches out, they won't even remember having interacted with you. They'll say, and of course I'm sure you've heard the same thing on Facebook, that they'll go, wait, I don't remember filling out a form.
Yeah, it's even more so on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Even more so. The other challenge with the lead forms is a lot of the time the responses are personal email addresses.
Oh, true.
So, I guess if that's happening, like, you have to make sure the sales team have to be so on it to get in quick while that experience is still fresh in their mind. Try and get them onto a business email address where they're going to be more responsive. But it's that trade-off, isn't it? It's like, do I pay more for the lead that's probably going to be a bit more qualified, probably going to be a bit more responsive, or am I willing to pay less for the lead, get a bit more volume, but do that extra round of work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, one of the things that I tell people, we do have a lot of clients who say, no, I only want business email. My sales team is going to complain unless I'm getting a business email.
Yeah.
But I really, really love personal emails. And the reason why is because those have the highest match rate on matched audiences,
Genius.
custom audiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I get someone's Gmail, I know that's going to match with their LinkedIn account. I know it's going to match with Facebook. It's going to match with Twitter. It's going to match with their Google account. And so I can use display ads to follow them around the internet and get them ready to graduate.
So this is getting really tactical, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you go, right, if the goal, or if one of the big goals of this campaign is get leads in, but put them into a nurturing sequence via matched audiences across different platforms, lead forms,
Yeah.
because you've got the personal email address and it matches. If the goal is to just get them straight into a call with a sales team, or kind of close to a call with a sales team, probably landing page.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy split to make. The other thing is that we do have clients who go, we don't actually have landing pages, or we don't like the way our landing pages work or look on mobile. And then we go, okay, you should be doing lead gen forms because we can bypass a landing page experience altogether.
Yeah, exactly. It's case by case, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you gave me a little sneak overview of your presentation tomorrow. And one of the items you were going to be talking about, or will have talked about if people...
It was super successful, guys. We don't know that right now, but I'm telling you, it was super successful.
It's like, this is time travel. You're going to be talking about bidding strategies.
Yes.
And, I'm really looking forward to what you've got to say on that, because there's not a massive amount of choice or flexibility within the LinkedIn ad platform. So can you give us a little take on it?
Yeah, I can describe bidding very simply at this point. If you are using LinkedIn ads, LinkedIn will not be forthright in telling you who or what your minimum bid is. They will tell you, we are suggesting you bid in the middle of the range, and we're going to tell you that this range goes from $8 to $20. I mean, it's this giant range, and your LinkedIn rep, if you have one, will be actively telling you, if you're not bidding in that range, you're not being aggressive enough. And on the other hand, if you're bidding in that range, you're probably spending a lot of money, and I don't know very many brands who can afford an $18 click, just saying. So what we do is we go in and immediately lower the bid to, call it $2, and then LinkedIn's going to balk at you a little bit. It's going to pop up with red letters and say, the minimum bid for this audience is $4.50, or I've seen like £4.20. So you look at that and go, okay, we know that that's the minimum. Let's launch a campaign bidding the minimum, and let's see how much traffic we get. So day one, let's say we're bidding £4.20. Day one, we spend £10. And you can raise your budget all the way sky high because you don't want it to trip before you've finished the test. And then you go, okay, we actually have more like £25 a day that we're willing to spend here. So let's raise our bids a little bit. So maybe you raise to £4.80 or £5, and then you let it run for a day or two, and you'll see. And over time, you'll get to this point where you've found exactly the lowest bid to reliably spend your entire budget on that traffic, and you have effectively balanced the lowest cost and the right amount of traffic for your application, and that's going to give you the lowest cost per lead possible. And no one's talking about this. I mean, this is elementary. If you were in AdWords like 7 years ago, you knew this. Facebook ads, they've always been a little bit CPM, but either way, this isn't hard, but no one's out there talking about it, and I find that we get really, really good results for our clients by simply bidding lower. And your LinkedIn reps will tell you every time you hop on the phone, you're breaking protocol here. Like you're not bidding aggressively enough. But I'll tell you, I keep clients and they don't. So,
Yep. I mean, that sums it up, doesn't it? So when you're finding that threshold, so that little sweet spot between kind of a bid that's too low and a bid that's going to be too expensive, are you judging that against cost per lead, CTR? Because I'm guessing if you're too low, your the positions you're getting in the feed are not going to be as good, so CTR is not going to be as good. Do you use that as an indicator, or are you just literally looking at bid versus cost per lead where's the balance?
Yeah, great question. So when I very first start out, I'm looking at CTR because that's my metric to tell me, did I make a mistake? Like, is something technically or functionally wrong here with the ad? And if I've lined up the right message to the right audience, I'm probably going to outperform LinkedIn's average click-through rate by 2 or 3x. So if we know that the average is somewhere around a 0.35% click-through rate. So if I'm not performing at 0.8 or above, then I go, okay, maybe there's a mismatch with this audience or the content's not right. But that's what I'm looking for the first little bit. And if I can prove out I'm able to spend what I want at the cost I want to the right audience with the right content, that's when I'm going to say, great, we're running. Let's start gathering data and look for how conversions look. Because at 2 conversions, you're obviously not going to be able to tell whether things are working, but you gather 15, 20, and all of a sudden you can go, cool, we now know what our CPL is.
Got ya. I mean, that makes total sense. And I guess this is all about structure and like process and defining, okay, day 1 we do this, we're looking for that. Day 2 we're making this change and we're looking for that impact. And yeah, that's super interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. And I'll also actually throw this one out there. LinkedIn recently came out with a type of bidding that's just what they call optimized bidding. And it's essentially saying, here, LinkedIn, here's my wallet, spend my money wisely.
I relate that to giving my 4-year-old kid £100 and telling him to go and do the family shop.
That's right. Yeah. And I actually felt the same way about Google, 5 or 6 years ago when they came out with optimized bidding, but they've actually done a really good job. I actually feel like I can trust Google with my money.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn, I still have reservations.
I guess the other challenge with automated bidding on LinkedIn is that because the costs are high, the volume is typically lower than Facebook or Google ads. So, in terms of, how many conversions you're getting in or how many clicks you're getting. So even if it was on par, like you're still up against a volume in most accounts.
Yeah.
You're still going to be up against a volume issue, right? So makes sense.
Yeah, and because of that volume issue, what I realize is a lot of people, when they're defining their targeting, they're saying, hey, I don't want to leave anyone out here. Like, I could potentially close someone in operations or in finance, or maybe the business owner cares about this marketing product. And you're going, well, you don't have enough budget to reach all of these people anyway. How about we just narrow your focus and bid only on the people who are your exact ideal audience, who feels your pain? So, don't, especially with smaller budgets, don't be afraid to just declare exactly, here are the only people I care about. I can always branch out that targeting later, but let me spend my limited amount of budget on just the people whose necks are bleeding.
Yeah. My favorite LinkedIn ad story was, we were working for a client who had a super kind of niche audience. And they were like, there's probably 200 people globally that will buy this product or be able to make a decision. And you're like, okay. So we started doing stuff that was a little bit broad. And then we tried this campaign where we said, right, literally, we want to target those people, no one else, right? So the audience size was absolutely tiny. The volume was tiny. We spent like £50 because beyond that, and you can't spend any more money on it.
Yeah, you want to. You're trying to spend money.
And we got 2 leads, and one of those, the biz dev manager was like, I've been trying to speak to this guy for 6 months, and I just have not been able to get in touch with him. So that goes against common sense in every which way possible. But for that case, it got her that lead that she'd been trying to get for months. So
beautiful.
It was.
Can we talk about ABM for a minute? Account-based marketing. Okay. Because this is something that LinkedIn does better than every other platform.
Yep.
And it lends so well to the story you just told, because LinkedIn has been playing catch up to all the other networks. So they just in 2016 gave us the ability to target by uploaded email addresses.
Yep.
and web retargeting, which is great. Every other platform has that. But they came out with one thing that no one else has, which is the ability to upload a list of company names. How cool is that?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, you go to talk to any sales department, they will happily give you a list of, here are the top 50 companies I would die to reach. And you can just walk in and say, cool, everyone give me your lists. I'll put together campaigns targeting only those companies.
Yeah, and you can build a pretty significant size, can't you? Is it?
Yeah.
Was it 3,000?
Well, you can get all the way down to 300 on a minimum audience size, no matter how you're targeting.
Yeah.
But you can upload up to 300,000 company names at a time.
Right.
In a list, which is amazing.
Amazing. So that's just, I guess it's enabling people like ourselves to join the dots between the sales and the marketing, right? So, if they're doing outbound campaigns, we can hit them with an ad the day before. Just build, it's just so tactical, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've been telling people forever that LinkedIn ads are so expensive that there's only this narrow segment of people who should be using it. But ideally, even if your average deal size is so small that LinkedIn ads, $6 to $9 a click doesn't make sense for you, everyone has a list of companies who, if you scored them, it would be a logo and case study on your website. It would be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars coming in from this. Like, everyone has that list. So you don't have to just use LinkedIn ads if you have budgets of $10,000 or more a month. You could run a very specific ABM campaign and just keep it going. It's not going to spend very much, but
Yep.
anyone that it does bring in is absolute gold.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. So we talked about bidding, we talked about targeting. Before we close up, I'd love to just get a couple of your thoughts on creative.
Sure.
Because it's so important, right? So where do you start? What have you found works? Like, have you got any tips that you can share on creative? I mean, it's a massive topic, but...
Yeah, well, we've run a lot of A/B tests because, especially for those early clients who didn't have several offers that we could be testing, the only thing we could be testing was different elements of creative. So we came up with this order of operations that says we know when we test things, we can sway performance depending on what we're testing. So number one is your intro. This is the text that comes above your images. That is the piece of the ad that makes the most difference. So I can sway performance by 20 or 30% with just using a different motivation or listing a different pain point in the intro. And then the next piece is your headline, the 70-ish characters that come below the image. And I don't get too creative with that one. I'll put in square brackets the type of asset, so it might be free ebook and then the title of the ebook. So there's not a whole lot of testing you can do there unless you want to get a little bit more creative. Every client that I send our onboarding checklist to, everyone's super curious and they want to get imagery right. But I'll tell you, imagery is like the very least important part of an ad. Where the imagery comes into play is when you've been running the same ad for a month. What we found is people tend to log into LinkedIn about once or twice a month, the average user. So when you've been running an ad for between 27 and 33 days, that's when the majority of that audience has seen it and they stop engaging, and you'll start to see your click-through rates fall. And so that's when you know, okay, it's time to refresh something. If you don't have a new offer, if you don't have necessarily new ad copy, all you have to do at 27 to 33 days is republish exactly the same ad with a very different image, and people will start clicking again because they don't remember. It seems fresh to them. So that's order of operations. Test your intros first, test headlines, and then when your ads have saturated, try an image switch.
That's so useful. I think people get caught up on the creative side, don't they? It's the shiny thing, and it's that intro copy. And do you stick to there's the truncation limit? So it's
yes.
what, 150 characters ish?
Yeah. If you go over, I think it's 155-ish characters, it'll truncate. And so actually, up until about 3 months ago, LinkedIn would charge you for the click if someone ever hit see more. So you've just been charged for a click and they're still not on your landing page. It made for some very inefficient campaigns. So we would instruct people, avoid going over 128 characters no matter what. Like 128 characters plus link, that will give you every single click will be going to your landing page. That's since changed, thank goodness. They realized that that's really stupid to charge people for a click on see more. But now we still like to stay within the truncation limit because you don't want people to have to click to take an action to see the rest of your ad. Just keep it short. Plus, on LinkedIn, people don't have time. They don't spend as much time reading things as they do on Facebook. So you need to catch them with short, punchy, quick snippets.
Super useful. Great stuff. So I go to close up. Like, you're super informed on all this, right? How do you keep up? Like, are there any blogs you can recommend people read? Are there any podcasts? Like, how do you stay in touch with everything that's changing?
Well, it's so funny because no one is pioneering in the field of LinkedIn ads. Like, it's just such a narrow niche that no one appears to care about. So sometimes it feels like I'm the only one pushing that agenda. So there's not a whole lot to learn except for tests that we run. So we, because of our specialty, we manage a lot of really large accounts. And so I'm meeting with my team very often, and they're telling me abnormalities that they see. They're saying, hey, something changed on X date, and we saw this change. And I'm going, ooh, why is that? So I get to explore. And that's something that is really great to me because I couldn't do that before I had a team. So my team are kind of watching the field. But the other thing that I do to stay up to date, like, we're here at Social Media Marketing World, and there are probably 30 sessions on just Facebook ads. I want to go to Facebook ads sessions and learn what's working there because social is social. If you can find the right audience on Facebook, they're probably going to respond really similarly, the same audience, on LinkedIn. So I want to find what's working where people are pioneering, and then I want to figure out how do I adapt this to LinkedIn.
Such a good point. And thank you so much for joining me. And that was a really interesting chat. Loads of really good little bits of information and advice within that. So thanks so much, and really looking forward to seeing your presentations.
Awesome, and thanks for having me on, and I'll get to see you next month in your own country. We'll see you at Brighton SEO.
Yeah. All right, cheers, AJ.